Today, leadership is very, very different from what it used to be decades ago, or even just 5 or 6 years ago. And why is that? That is because our landscape is changing dramatically. Think of all the AI tools that are now coming into our offices. Think of the fact that most people actually prefer to work from home and no longer go into the office physically. Think of the fact that now teams are spread literally all over the globe. So, what do these changes actually mean for leadership? That is exactly what we are going to discuss in today's very first podcast episode of The Shift, our podcast series designed by Hybrid for hybrid leaders. And here with me today is a wonderful HR leader with many years of experience, not just in HR, but also in tech. And I'm very honored to welcome you to our first episode today, Anam.
Thank you, Sabine. Thank you so much for having me on this incredible first episode of Hybrid Leadership. And I love that. I love the fact that the series is kicking off with real talk and not just about how we lead others, but also how we show up for ourselves. So thank you once again for creating this space and inviting me to be part of this extremely powerful beginning.
Thank you, Anna. I am quite sure that you will be able to bring in a very valuable perspective to all of our audience because you have been experiencing many very dynamic work environments. You yourself are a very ambitious leader who has been going through many changes throughout your career, and you just started the most exciting change just a few weeks ago. But I won't take too much away. You will be able to explain all of this to everyone who's here with us today. So let's start and take a look of what hybrid leadership actually means for us and why we think that this is an important topic to discuss today. When we think about hybrid leadership, what is in the focus for us is the trinity of heart, mind, and energy. When we think of leadership, for us, it's no longer about making a decision that is only data-driven or that is emotional. It's no longer about making decisions that are either focused on just one particular topic or that are taking into account the entire big picture. We believe that this understanding of either or leadership is no longer applicable. What is your take on that?
Very similar to what you said, Sabine. So I feel it's leadership that is not afraid of contradiction because it's not just big picture thinking, it's really ground level feeling. And it's not either or, like you said, it's always and. And honestly, according to me, it's because it's not about climbing that ladder or building power and presence. And like you said, Sabine, heart and head, strategy and soul. So to me, hybrid leadership is literally, I'll give you an example, walking the floor of a fulfillment center and sitting down with an e-picker to understand how their incentive scheme actually impacts their performance. And then you go back to the executive discussions to make strategic decisions that actually reflect that frontliner inside. And it's always how I have operated, whether during my years at Majal Fathem, leading e-commerce, or now at ByteSpark.ai as a partner and chief people officer, where we're literally blending AI with empathy. And the whole purpose is to truly transform how we hire, lead, and grow talent. So that is my take on what hybrid leadership is truly about.
Thank you for bringing in this very tangible example. I absolutely love this because oftentimes how leaders are also defining themselves is mostly through the title that they actually carry. When I am
Yeah.
talking to someone who is a CXO or a head of XYZ department, this is how they understand themselves at the top of a department, at the top of an organization. And oftentimes there is this very tangible difference in hierarchy. So there is a limit to, let's say, the people that they actually want to reach. They are talking to their N minus ones, maybe to their N minus twos, but I know only very few leaders who actually also have the courage and the humility to go through all levels of the organization, sit
Absolutely.
and talk with everyone to really understand what is this organization actually made up of. And this is why I'm so grateful for your example, because this is exactly what it should be. Understand what we're doing strategically in the organization and whether that actually does benefit everyone who is contributing to making our organization successful. So, Anam, allow me to ask you, simply because you have such vast experience, how did your understanding of leadership change throughout your career?
I think the way that I started thinking about leadership models is I started being very conscious about the fact that the leadership models were then designed for certainty and not complexity. And they prioritize structure over spirit. But in today's reality, where AI is changing how we work, where Gen Z and boomers sit at the same table, where hybrid is the new norm, and those static models start collapsing under pressure. So, for example, in my previous organization, I saw firsthand how leadership culture sometimes struggled with agility. We were scaling e commerce very fast, but the old models of control and top down decision making sometimes just couldn't keep pace. And we needed leaders who could hold ambiguity, who were comfortable saying, let's test and learn, rather than I have the answer, because you sometimes don't have. And I think that's how leadership needs to start, continuing to evolve. Um, they should not fall in the either or trap, like I just said. They need to make sure that leadership is not built for control, but actually connection. And it should not reward the loudest voices, but actually some people who actually widely pause, reflect, and then answer to a certain situation. And it should not be treated like as if empathy is like a weakness, where actually it's your sharpest weapon in the battlefield of people. So it's basically leadership that really grows up in this aspect. I hope you kind of resonate with whatever I'm saying on this.
Absolutely. I think it is very important what you're saying, that empathy is extremely important, of course, and also at the same time, giving oneself the permission really to say, I don't need to know everything.
Yeah.
Because this is another thing that I have been noticing with leaders a lot, that they believe that simply with the title of being the head of or the C level or whatever else it might be, that they would be expected to know everything and not to make any mistakes, which is very unrealistic, to be honest, because nobody will ever know everything. That's a fact, and I believe we are all aware of that. But bringing in the modesty to say, I know that I don't know everything and I'm not hiding it. And I am open and so willing to learn, not just from any books or online resources or AI, but I'm also willing to learn from my team members, from my peers.
So I think rightly put, Sabine, because it's very important to be, while you're practicing empathy and humility at the workplace, it's important to be modest in your action. It's important to be modest in your approach and intent, because literally, what I really wish some of the leaders would actually unlearn, and from my experience in the workplace, people think that perfection is power, but it's not. It's actually relatability, it's humanity. It's owing to your mistakes and laughing at your screw ups and letting your team see that you don't have it together all the time. And that's where the magic really starts. And I feel, Sabine, one of the most powerful things that a leader can actually say is, I was wrong, and let's do it better together. So it's very important to bring that part of relatability, the humanity part, and the empathy part when you're doing everything. Because literally, the workspace is all about building that connection and creating that space for others to be open, to be vulnerable, to be more passive, to what you're saying. And I think that's very important, that leaders try to need to exude a behavior like this, where it's okay to fail fast and learn. It's okay to even declare that I was wrong. You don't have to be that perfectionist power statement all the time. So that's my take on this.
I am absolutely with you. And this was beautifully put, because when you take this a step further, and we are considering the third element of heart, mind, and energy, what does it do to everyone's energy when we are, on the one hand, in an environment where everyone has to constantly fear that there might be harsh feedback because we made a mistake? Or where we feel uncertain because we do actually not dare to share something that's on our mind, compared to a work environment where we know we can openly share whatever is on our mind. Somebody will tend to us and actually help us out. Where we can make mistakes because we know they won't be punished, but they are being seen as an opportunity to do it better next time. So, this has an extreme impact on how we actually make it through our day. when we think about different sources of energy, one very important source of energy for every human being is to feel integrated into a group. This is one of our main motives. We want to be accepted. We want to be feeling that we are a part of a group and that we are accepted the way we are. And in my understanding, that is definitely one of the number one goals of any leader, to create that kind of environment for the people that I work with.
Absolutely. I think spot on said Sabine on this, because you want to say you feel accepted, you feel involved, you want to learn, you want to grow. But then, without a doubt, if you do not offer that psychological safety,
Mm.
then it just all falls down, right? So many organizations that I have seen is they will slap this term onto a slide deck or into a handbook. And we can say all about the whole psychological safety. Yes, we have it in our values, but when it's time for the bold truth, radio silence. In my last role, psychological safety wasn't a poster, it was a practice. We
Mm.
created an environment where digital team members could really challenge decisions, even those from the CDO or myself, and without any fear or retribution. We didn't lead from corridor conversations or hearsay. We stayed connected to the real voices, to real data, to real feedback. And that's what creates trust. It's not performative town halls, but really making people feel heard. And if you do that, along with the right level of empathy, and providing that psychological safety actual in practice, then it works. Then you hold to your values. Otherwise, they're just on a book, and there is no execution of that. So I think this is one aspect where leaders sometimes struggle, Sabine, in my view.
Mm.
Really creating that psychological safety beyond the textbook interpretation or slide decks, but actually practicing it in reality.
I absolutely agree with you, Anam. And thank you for elaborating on this and bringing in this wonderful example of the last environment that you worked in. So, to all of our leaders who are listening to us today, what would be your number one tip of what could be the first thing that they can do to increase psychological safety within their teams?
Psychological safety, I think it's exactly what I kind of said before. You need to allow people to voice in their point of view, and you need to give a space to them that, guys, we're not going to be judging you for saying a statement that is maybe awfully wrong or whatever, or does not even make any strategic sense, but allow you to voice it because we heard you. It's very important that you allow them this channel so that they feel heard, and feeling heard is very, very important. So that psychological safety to me is is the, I think, the lenience of an organization where the junior most person is so empowered enough to walk into a senior's office and say, this is my idea, what do you think about it? Do you have 2 minutes for me? And without being shunned away, or without being said, oh, let's just keep the door closed. I don't want any guests and everything. It should be open door. It should be ideas from anywhere and everywhere. So I think if you allow that and you walk the talk, literally, which means leaders could actually be seen as going to all levels within the organization, or creating forums where ideation comes from anywhere. There was a great example of one of the, I would say, one of the proudest moments where I led this initiative of the OIC, which is called Observe, Innovate, and Change. And Sabine, we allowed ideations to come from anywhere in the organization. Once a year, we would do this event, yeah, anywhere in the organization across the 15 countries. And I would, kind of chair and host that event, which was great because then the ideation was not being just done at the executive rooms. We allowed the floor to be open across maybe a picker, maybe a stalker, maybe a team leader, maybe a store manager, maybe someone in the head office. Everyone was able to submit their best idea that could actually change the face of retail. And I think that's important for organizations to allow this. That would be one way that you can actually overcome psychological safety barriers.
I think that is an absolutely excellent tip for the very reason that you can start implementing this tomorrow without having to change any organizational structures.
Absolutely.
Opening your door doesn't require any permission from anybody else. It doesn't require a change of policies. You can start opening your door. And of course, it might take a little bit of time until people understand that you're actually serious about this. That no, there are no repercussions if you actually do say something that might be seen as critical, or if you suggest something that is not doable. That might take time. But still, this very first step of opening your door and saying, I am here to hear you and I am here to answer to you, and I am not here to punish you for whatever you're going to tell me. That is something that can be done immediately. So, thank you very much for
Absolutely.
sharing this, Anam. I think this is
Thank
absolutely
you.
valuable. And everything that you've been elaborating on really also confirms to me one more time that when we look at leadership, it's really not just about hard skills, but it's
Yeah.
so much more about empathy. It's about understanding the neuroscience of leadership. It's about understanding how to take in other people's perspective.
Yeah.
So these are also topics that we will, of course, cover in our podcast series of Hybrid. But please share with us, Anam, what do you think is the most urgent skill that leaders need to learn today?
You know, I think the most urgent skill would be literally relatability and humanity, right? I mean, I think yes, humanity, yes, it should be by it should be just a given. It has to be there, but owing to your mistakes and relatability, that literally makes a space for evolution. I think that's one of the key skill set that leaders need to practice for today, because today, unlike the past generations, you have everywhere from a Gen Z to the boomers sitting across the same table nowadays. And if you're able to have those connective discussions, that's where the leadership energy really shifts. And that's typically what I want to also, kind of share with from my previous experience. When I was a VP of e-commerce at my previous company, we made an active effort to integrate both the emotional and the strategic intelligence. And that's what I would encourage the leaders to do that today. Integrate both the emotional and strategic intelligence effectively. An example, we had to make a very tough decision to offshore maybe certain roles that impacted real people and their livelihoods. But here's what we did differently, Sabine. My HR team and I didn't just hand out notices. We built CVs with them. We made recruiter introductions. We gave strong offshore or exit packages, but we gave them respect too. And we transparently continue to give clarity to the people of the why of a certain action, letting them know rather than be surprised or hearing it through corridor conversations. And that's head and heart. And that's the kind of leadership that truly lasts. When a leader is able to integrate both the emotional and strategic intelligence, that's your most powerful skill set that you can walk away with.
It absolutely is. What a fantastic example to end today's episode with, because it is definitely heart and mind of the leaders, but it also directly impacts the energy of your stakeholders. When they have to go through a very difficult situation, as for example, being let go, but knowing that there is someone who actually cares for you and someone who is really trying to get you back on your feet, then of course you do feel a lot better with a higher energy to also take the next step rather than, being completely ignored and hey, we're letting you go today. The rest is up to you. But, don't fall back on us. So thank you so much, Anna, for bringing this at
Thank you,
this
Sabine.
end of this wonderful episode. I don't think that I could have a better guest for opening our hybrid podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sabine. I mean, seriously, it's for holding space for such a real and needed conversation. It's honestly been an honor to be part of this first episode. And I'm really, really excited to see how this series reshapes the way we lead, listen, and show up. I think it's very, very important that its leadership needs to be defined as honestly as an energy and not just a skill. So that's what I'm doing right now. I am literally trying to be bold enough where I can disrupt, soft enough where I can rebuild, and also being very authentically raw enough to say that I'm still becoming because I'm learning. And that's what I need to really kind of put a close to it, that it's not just a skill, it's the energy. And you bring that to the table.
It is very much about the energy. And I am wishing you all the best for your journey. I am
Thank
absolutely
you.
convinced that you're going to do absolutely great, Anam, with all
Thank
the
you.
experience that you're bringing to the table and the humility and modesty that you're bringing. Thank you very much. And for everyone out there, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation, and we're looking forward to welcoming you in a month from now.
Thank you.